Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Board. We are talking about Fez today. And first of all, I would say, why don't we let our two runners introduce themselves? Because I couldn't pronounce their names anyways.
Hello, I am thearst3rd, Fez runner, and I'm one of the two people who made the Fez bingo.
Hi, I'm Jokertyf, currently number 3 on the Fez Any% leaderboard. My friend thearst here is number 1, and I was the, I guess, could you call me the main programmer of Fez Bingo?
So, Fez is a game that's not really known to the majority of people. So, maybe you could describe the game a little bit to us, like, what is Fez?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I'll start, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
So Fez was created about 10 years ago by Phil Fish, and Renaud Bedard was the programmer. And it's a 2D/3D platformer. So in the game, you are playing as if it's a 2D platformer, but you can press the trigger buttons on your controller to sort of rotate the world and change your perspective. And that is the basis for all the mechanics and the puzzles and stuff like that.
Yep, that's basically the idea is the world is a 3D world, but at any given point, your camera makes it look like a 2D world. And so there's ideas like, for example, if there's two platforms that are very far apart in 3D, but then when you rotate the world, they look like they're right next to each other. You can walk from one platform directly to the other. Right? So that's the kind of mechanic, that's the kind of gameplay that Fez provides with the 2D/3D aspect.
How did you guys discover Fez, and how did you guys get into the Fez speedrunning?
I think I don't even remember how I discovered Fez in the first place, but I remember playing it on like my first PC, like probably close to when it came out. And it wasn't until college where I introduced this game to thearst and got him to play it. And then he was the one who introduced me to the speedrun, so...
Yeah, and I will say, I did technically play this game also like back when it came out, like one of my friends had it and I played it on his computer and I didn't get very far. I was not the smartest, but I played the game way back then. I thought, man, that's really fun. Maybe one day I'll actually buy the game and own it. And then in 2019, it went free on the Epic Games Store. So that's like when I got it. And yeah, Jokertyf had already played it and like was able to assist me with some of the puzzles. This game has some really, really hard puzzles, especially towards the end.
There's one puzzle that is actually still unsolved.
Yeah.
as of now.
So now we're talking about bingo today, and
Oh yeah.
and the big question here would probably be like, what has inspired you guys to make a Fez bingo?
Yeah, so I think I had the original idea to do the bingo, and I was watching. I will say I haven't watched too many of the bingo-thons or anything, so I don't want to disappoint you, Floha. But it was actually Indie-thon that I just happened to be in. It was my first marathon that I joined, and there was a Hollow Knight bingo, and well, I ran Fez at that first Indie-thon, and I'm like, oh, is there a way I could make Fez work with bingo? And the idea that I thought was, well, so Fez, the main sort of goal of the game is there's collectibles, right? There's, basically 64 collectibles, 64 cubes that you want to get, and all of them either require you to platform to get them or to solve puzzles to get them. And I thought, okay, well, there's 64 of them. Maybe that could be enough to be a bingo, like one for each cube. Some of them, it doesn't necessarily make sense. But combined with some other things like, visit this amount of areas, do this amount of actions. And my original attempt at making one, I didn't come up with enough things, so I kind of put it on the back burner. And then Jokertyf was the one who really said, I think this can work, and spearheaded the idea by making a much more thorough set of goals than I did. So
Yeah, so I was always aware of that bingo existed. In the past, I've watched Ocarina of Time bingos that people have done. And I was like, this is a cool concept for a game, because one of the things I like about it is that it forces you to make routing decisions on the fly. It tests your visualization skills as well as just pure execution, right? So one of the things about Fez is that, yes, there are 32 golden cubes and there are 32 anti-cubes. However, a lot of those golden cubes come in the form of cube bits, which are pretty impossible to track. At least having a goal for collect these 8 specific bits would just be a nightmare, I think. So one of the things that I thought of was, how can we drill down and kind of make more goals from thin air, so to speak? So one of the things that I did was I started doing categories of cubes. So for example, there are these things in the game called obelisks. There are 4 of them, and each one gives you an anti-cube. And so in addition to saying, get this specific obelisk or get this specific obelisk, those can be goals. But also a goal can be maybe collect any 2 or any 3, or perhaps even collect all 4. And so adding goals like that, and then also keeping in mind things like artifacts and maps, and the heart pieces, those other collectibles that you don't really think about in a normal speedrun, made it so we could get enough goals to make bingo replayable and have lots of replay value.
Something that interests me now is you've talked about cubes and anti-cubes. What's the difference?
Yeah, so basically the difference is cubes, or golden cubes, as we'll sometimes call them. You usually get those by solving platforming challenges. You'll just sort of find them around the world. If you just explore everywhere, you'll pretty much find them all. Except there are some that are relatively hidden. But the anti-cubes are all pretty much hidden behind some sort of puzzle, right? You might not know that they're there. You might have to enter in a secret code to spawn it. You might have to solve a puzzle to open a door, and then behind the door there will be an anti-cube. In terms of the game completion, you need to find 32 cubes. It doesn't matter if they're golden cubes or anti-cubes, to beat the game. And of course, if you want 100% it, you want to find them all. But by making a distinction between the golden cubes and the anti-cubes for the bingo, we can make it more interesting.
And that actually brings up an interesting thing about one of the rules for this bingo, is that if we made it so that to complete the bingo you had to enter the 32 cube door and go to the moon and do that whole sequence to end the run, then it would kind of, negate, but it would make a lot of the goals you would need to get them anyway to get 32 cubes. And so by removing that requirement and having the run end as soon as you finish the 5 goals, it makes it more interesting for routing.
What is it in particular that, or if you had to point out one thing, what makes fast bingos fun?
So here's my answer to that, and this is the thing that I came up with when we were doing our first runs, which is the fact that for the first time, I had to think of routing on the fly. So Fez is, it's like an open world game, right? It's sort of got branching paths that, I wouldn't actually say it's open world, but it's got branching paths, right? So you start, and then there's multiple different ways you can go. And there are shortcuts that can take you from one path to another path if you've been to both paths before. So it's once you've been to another area, you can take a shortcut to another area you've already been. And so
And for me at least, one of the reasons that made this fun is because if I were to do like a normal any percent race with thearst3rd, I'd get creamed every single time. Just because, his level of execution is just better than mine. And Bingo allows us to play together in a way that it's not 100%, it's not just your execution. Like thearst said, it's also the routing that you need to make decisions about, and so that allows it to be like a little bit of a more level playing field, I think.
What do you think is a fun and engaging goal, and what is a goal that you are not so fond of that might even need some rebalancing or some other sort of, I don't know, modification?
So I can tell you, anytime I see the goal collect the rising lava cube, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that one. We've been trying to tweak the difficulty curves of each objective, and for us, difficulty kind of means distance from the start of the game. So from the very start of the game, you have to go into one area, collect a bunch of keys, go to another hub area, collect more keys, go to the third area, and then do one that's like a several minute long ride, that gets a really high difficulty.
That one and the owl, the owl room anti-cube, those are both goals that you will see a row or column that just like looks, oh man, all these goals are so easy, and then the fifth one is, either collect the rising lava anti-cube or get the owl room anti-cube, and both of those just take forever. Yeah. But I mean, that's the point, right? All the groups are supposed to be around the same difficulty, so if you have one of those, then all the other four are supposed to be super easy.
I can't say I know any that need balancing right now. I guess if I knew one that needed balancing, I'd say we would go fix it, right? But there are definitely goals that are, by design, harder than a lot of other goals. And by the way, the thing that makes the owl goal so tricky, there are 4 owls in the game, and they only come out at night. There's a day-night cycle that's like about 5 minutes. So you gotta be really careful when you're playing, right, that you make sure that you get to where the owls are when it's nighttime. Otherwise, you might have to wait for 5 minutes. That's what makes that goal really hard.
When it comes to routing, like, what are the aspects that most people, or what are some aspects that people don't usually think of or tend to forget?
Yeah, so I think one of them that I mentioned earlier was shortcut doors. So, like I said, in the game, there are doors that like basically act as shortcuts between 2 areas, and you have to have already been to both areas for it to work, for it to like allow you to take the shortcut. Now in the game, I don't know how many there are.
I think there's like less than 10, I think.
Yeah, it's something like that. But for example, in a speedrun, not all of them get used, right? Like even in like the 100%, get everything speedruns, you don't use all of them because some of them, don't really go along with the normal speedrun route. But in bingo, sometimes those lesser used shortcuts are exactly what you need. And so being able to think of how to use the shortcuts to avoid, needing to either take a long trek or even use them to avoid taking the warps. Because there are warps that, teleport you to other areas, but they have a really long animation.
I think it's like 15 seconds.
Yeah, and then there's like another like loading zone after, unless you're counting that in, which maybe. But it's a pretty long animation, so if you can just take a shortcut door and instantly go somewhere else instead, it's definitely faster.
So at the start of a bingo, so when looking at the goals on your card, what kind of factors make you think that this is a row that I definitely want to go for, or I might consider it, and something that says I will definitely not be going for this row?
So one of the things in the early versions of this game, when we were beta testing it, we didn't really have synergies implemented yet. So what we would look for is basically which groups have the most goals that are in a specific hub area. So for example, if one of the groups was like, okay, there's 2 things you need to get in nature and 3 in zoo, that's only 2 that's only 2 hub areas. Whereas if it's like, okay, you need to get something in zoo, you need to get something in industrial, you need to get something in graveyard, that's already 4 because you need to go to nature anyway. And so trying to minimize that was the thing to do. Now that we've added synergies, though, it's more about if you have multiple goals in the same place, like, are they close enough to each other to make it work? Or is one goal like kind of on the way to another goal? Something like that makes a particular group more favorable.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes even when it's still only two different sub areas, and I don't know if our synergies completely eliminate this, it probably makes them less likely, but for example, if I see that I have to go to sewers, which is basically one extreme, and I also have to go to zoo, which is like another extreme, I probably am going to avoid that one, because to travel to either one of them is okay, but to go to both, it's a hike.
Do you think that normal speedrunners could perhaps in a way benefit from doing bingos, or maybe like especially runners who just run categories that don't explore the game to its fullest?
I think doing bingo helps 100%. And one of the things that it helps with in particular is just movement. So we've hinted about this earlier, but there's a few like movement techs you can do on corners, and during in any percent run, for me at least, it's tempting to kind of avoid doing those tricks unless I can do them 100%, because if you mess it up, you lose time, right? Obviously. Whereas in bingo, I'll go for them way more often, and because I'm going for them way more often, I'm actually learning how to do them better. And so when I go back to doing the 80% runs, I have more confidence in myself, and I can attempt more of them and succeed in more of them. So I think in that respect, at least, doing bingo has 100% helped my 80% runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I was going to add is this is more of a hypothetical. Because getting practice with some of the areas that aren't in any percent is good, and it might indirectly translate to playing better in the few areas that are in any percent. But for bingo, one idea that I had that could help is maybe if you're routing on the fly, the potential for like a discovery of, oh, I've never thought to go from this place to this place could maybe spark the inspiration for a new route. I don't think that's happened yet, but that's one thing that's, okay, maybe if we have enough people doing this, someone will be like, wait, that was actually really efficient. Let's try that. So crossing my fingers, maybe that'll happen. We'll see.
I think that definitely has more of a potential for like discovering routes and maybe like full completion or 209.4%.
Yeah.
Or even like all golden cubes.
Yeah.
I think 80% at this point is pretty optimized.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think that'll really help much for any percent, but
Unfortunately, we're already at the end in here. But before we go, any final words from you two that you want to say while you're still here?
Thank you so much for inviting us onto the series. This is super exciting. It was fun working on Fez Bingo. I hope to see people playing it and give us feedback, and I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah, I mostly want to say the same things. Thanks for having us on. And to anyone watching on YouTube, be sure to check out the Fez speedrunning community. You can go on speedrun.com/Fez, and I think there is a link to the Discord, and you can start doing runs. It's very easy to learn, and I hope to see lots of people coming into the community soon.
Thank you two very much for joining us. If you are watching this on YouTube, then here is a reminder for you that this was only an extract of the interview. If you want the full interview, if you want to read up on the full interview, then go in the description right now. There is a link to a transcript of the full interview that you can see on our website. You can read through it for free, and it covers a lot more stuff that we probably didn't even touch in the video. So definitely go take a look at that. Yeah, with that, that was it for today's Beyond the Board. If you want to be featured in a Beyond the Board for your game, then do feel free to contact us. And with that, we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Peace.